G'day, how are you?
Go. God, you've got a beautiful sunset behind you.
Yeah, my wife said I should stand there and take it here, and then everyone can see what a lovely spot we're in for this dreaded lockdown.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to lie. I mean, that's a pretty good start. Let's talk lockdown to begin with, because obviously life is a little bit different at the moment, how it would usually be at this time of the year. How are spirits in Team Burton?
So, do you know, I'm embarrassed to say I'm really enjoying Corona. Um, we're quietly training the horses, and then I'm able to come in and spend a lot more time with my family, and I'm in such a nice place, and the weather's been fantastic. So far, we're surviving
You
okay.
okay?
Yeah.
So far, so good. I'm not going to lie, it doesn't look bad. And if anybody's been following you on Instagram, your two boys look at an absolutely adorable age, and to be keeping you both on your toes.
They are so much fun at the moment, and the youngest one is right into golf, so I couldn't be more excited.
Talk to me about the golf, actually, because a little birdie's told me that you have been honing your skills over the last few weeks.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of my owners listening, so I don't want to let them know that my handicap might be improving. But there was a very well-timed present from my wife, which is a golf simulator, so I've been sneaking off to the garage to use that and hone my skills, like you say, every chance I get.
But other than that, horses, are they still in work?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't. We sort of are doing sensible things. We're certainly not cross-country schooling or doing anything idiotic like that, but using common sense and training the horses. And I'm really enjoying that too, because obviously we're away at competitions on weekends, and then I get back. I've sort of got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to school the youngsters before going to the next competition. So I'm really loving the fact that we've got so much time. I've got a four-year-old in, and we're able to train them really methodically, and I love it.
I think this is actually a good point to think we've got to be looking at these silver linings, because there is so much sort of worry and, everything is very different to how it would usually be. And we're very, very lucky to be able to say, we've got time at home and we're really enjoying those bits. But actually, as a larger picture, for a lot of people around the world, it is a really scary time. And I think that's one of the Riders Connected pieces, is all about sort of bringing the community together, and hopefully something that this video will do as well, because everybody watching tonight, it's quite nice to all stay connected, actually, when nobody is seeing each other and nobody is able to get out to events.
Yeah, it is. And aren't we lucky to live in such a day and age? This morning, my two sons and I sat on the bed and spoke to my mum in Australia. I mean, face to face, obviously, what an incredible thing. But it is a serious thing, and we must treat it with respect. And it is a little bit like wartime around the world, and so we should all come together and do our very best to fight this common enemy.
Yeah, but keep the silver linings, because it's so easy when life gets very, very busy. And we're the same, small toddler in tow, and you turn around and all of a sudden they're doing things that they weren't doing 2 weeks ago even. So it's nice to kind of keep stock of all of that. Right, let's jump into some questions, because we have had loads of questions sent in before this. If you would like to ask Chris any questions, well, then send them in. We will put as many to him as possible. And actually, yeah.
Can you hear my 2-year-old screaming out?
It's okay. It's fine. Bedtime. Let's talk about eventing in Australia, because we've had a few messages about sort of how you started your career out there, and ultimately, would you go back out there to event? Obviously, your family's over there. Talk to us about how eventing differs to start with.
Yeah, eventing is certainly one-day eventing is very different. They're more like FEI events. We'd go for the 3 days or the weekend, and therefore that was one of the things I missed most, because obviously British one-day eventing would sort of be in and out, and we'd get there and then get home, with as quickly as possible. And I must say I miss sort of sitting on the tail ramp of the truck or a lorry, for those that speak English, and enjoying a beer with my mates, that sort of thing. So it was in that regard a lot different. However, eventing is becoming fairly common across the globe these days, I think, in the modern sport.
When did you move over here?
In 2011, to prepare for London 2012. So I
Was
was
it
so
always
fortunate.
was it always the aim to stay, or was that a happy accident?
Yeah, was that a question that someone put on there? Because, Mum, we've been over this. I'm still on my gap year, and I'll be back shortly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, look, I mean, London 2012 was a wonderful thing, wasn't it? And it was a wonderful opportunity for me to say to my sponsors, look, I want to move over to the UK. And I had this incredible team of owners in Australia, an incredible team of horses. And they all but sort of helped me get over here, and that set me.
Oh, we've lost him. He left. We're presuming that's going to be a little bit of a internet issue, and we'll get him back on in a second. Here we go. He's coming back now. Here we go. Dun, dun, dun. I feel like I need the drum roll. You're back. There we go.
Are we back on?
Yeah, you're back now.
Sorry.
Right. You were saying you had wonderful owners in Australia, and then we lost you.
Yeah, and basically they all supported me to move to the UK, and that really stood me in such good stead because I was here with my 5 or 6 old friends from Australia who really helped me get on the international stage very well.
And do you still have owners from Australia that are part of your team now?
So it's been sort of obviously a decade or more since or so rather, and slowly but surely, you know, those horses retired or moved on, or the lovely mare from London, she went home to Australia and retired, or was sold. I've always kept a connection back home, so I've had owners over the years. We had at one stage we had a horse with 10 owners, and a lot of them were Australian. However, a lot these days, British. Interestingly, they have Australian ties, many of them.
Okay.
Children in Australia, or, you know, Jill and David, sort of, David is Australian, so that sort of thing.
Okay, that's fair enough. And would you ever move back? Or, I mean, I don't want to upset your mum if she is watching this, but what's the plan? Is it a long term over here or go back?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's a difficult question.
As well.
Well, I'm lucky my wife is Australian. A lot of my mates, fellow Aussie eventing riders, have British wives, so they're stuck here. Bad luck, fellas.
That's fair. And you very carefully didn't answer that question either. Not upsetting anybody, I noticed, don't you worry. Okay, let's go through a few more of the questions that we've had in. And don't forget, if you want to ask any questions, just comment on this post and we'll put them to Chris in a second. Okay, how did you always know that you wanted to be an event rider? Has that always been the dream?
Do you know, when I was at school, I hated the question, what are you going to be when you grow up? I knew I should give some generic comment, like a doctor or a lawyer or a tradesman or something like that. But then I guess really I had an amazing horse who, and my parents let me go down south on my gap year. I ended up working for Kevin McNabb, and was a working student. And that horse was just so terrific that I just got the bug and became addicted to the sport. I never thought it was something I could do for a profession or do it for a career. It just happened that way. Yeah.
And then you came obviously over here and it's become very much a way of life. Okay, cross country, because it is going to be a topic of conversation. Everybody wants to know how they can go as fast as you. I don't think they can, but we're going to get a few of your tips of the trade in a minute. Okay, question in. Who do you think is the best cross country horse at the moment? You are allowed to say one of yours.
Oh, that's a tough question. I'm not good on the spot like this. At the moment, this is the thing. There are so many good horses in the sport, and when we look forward to Tokyo, I think the cross country will be influential, but I can envisage the top 10-20% of horses in the sport doing the cross country easily, so it'll be more of a competition on the 3 phases, which it should be, dressage and show jumping. So I honestly can't think off the top of my head.
Is there a horse in your career that stands out as being one that when you sat on to go cross country was just something else?
Yeah, again, difficult question for me to answer politically, but absolutely. I've had some incredible horses in my time. Nobilis always stands in my mind as the most incredible cross-country horse. There wasn't much he couldn't jump or scope or rideability. And before that, I had a thoroughbred called Newsprint.
Okay,
And
what's the Adelaide winner?
yes, yeah, full thoroughbred and an incredible horse. Sadly, was never the soundest one, but I remember taking him to Adelaide once, really embarrassingly unfit, and he just stormed around, and in the end, he just let loose and galloped home faster than any of them. So it goes to show you our breeding is perhaps more important than the fitness work we do.
Well, actually, that's one of the questions that's come in. It was sent in from Paula, who has said, what's the lowest percentage of blood you would consider capable of eventing today? Or that you would personally prefer to ride?
Yeah, of course, when we're shopping, we like to see that they've got a big percentage of thoroughbred, perhaps a father or a mother or the mother's father, sorry, that is a thoroughbred. Like I said, you know, I've seen full thoroughbreds. I remember full thoroughbreds in Australia that didn't have blood and couldn't make a 10-minute 3 or 4 star. Equally, I took a little horse to Tokyo Olympics who was a warm blood. He was by a warm blood from a warm blood mother, very, very low percentage thoroughbred, and I still claim he was the fastest horse I ever sat on. He took 2 long routes and made the time.
That was Santana.
At Rio, yeah, Santana.
And he was one of the youngest horses in the field that year as well, wasn't he?
He was an extraordinary horse. He won his 1 star, he won his 2 star. We'd laughed about it the year before, and then we took him to Samura and he won the 3 star and got qualified and selected, and then he went to the Olympics. It was unbelievable.
And he finished, I want to say he finished 5th.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
There we go, just a second. Okay, let's go to another couple of questions. One actually, come in here in terms of the Olympics. Which Olympics stands out for you as a highlight? Was it that Rio Olympics? Obviously, it was a very successful one for Team Australia.
Yeah, so it was, and it was the thing about Rio that sticks in my mind was the wonderful team unity we had. We had my good friend Sam Griffiths, Shane Rose and Stuart Tinney, and we all are to this day very good mates, and it was a fantastic team to be a part of. Actually, Sammy Birch was the reserve as well, and she can knock with the lads as well. So we really just had a wonderful time on that championships, although we didn't get the gold in the end. It was still very memorable for us.
Team bronze, Sam Griffiths finished 4th, you finished 5th, so very, very close to the podium. Do you feel like an individual medal at an Olympics is something that still very much drives your motivation?
Yeah, of course it does. I'd be lying if I said it doesn't. However, I'm lucky, you know, I've learned that the secret to this game is sustainability and tenacity. So, you know, we just stay in it. We keep doing what we're doing, and I love my business and I love what I do, and I'm fortunate to have such amazing horses to ride.
That's very fair, and it's actually important that we all you can get very focused on one particular goal, can't you? And actually there is so much more to it. Okay, let's go through a few more of the questions. Which riders do you idolize, past, present, and up and coming? So who has been a sort of an influence in your career, maybe growing up, that actually you can take something from?
Oh, look, we're going to be here all night at this rate, Nicole. I've been influenced by so many wonderful riders and trainers, you know, back in Australia that helped me along the way. At the moment, I guess some of the riders I admire most, of course, is people like Ingrid Klimker. I love watching her ride dressage. I think everyone should aspire to ride dressage and train the way she does. And then when it comes to jumping across country, of course, Mickey is the best. We got into a bit of a drunken argument, Tim Price and I, about whether Mickey will be good enough to cut it as a show jumper, and people are saying he won't. And I said, if he's not, then I'm giving up, because he's such a talented rider. So I'll be very surprised if he doesn't mix it or dominate with the best in that sport as well. And then, of course, so many of the greats here. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about the UK. When I moved here, I was just absolutely in awe to see, you know, I was at a one-day event following Pippa Funnell into the novice arena, or Mark Todd or Blythe Tate, you know, it just goes on and on. So it's been a real blast.
There are some incredible riders out there. Okay, let's go back to some more questions that were sent in before this. And don't forget, if you've got any questions, send them in comment. We'll put them to Chris in a second. Okay, let's talk about Tokyo. Tokyo 2021. Obviously, plans are fairly different now as to what they were sort of 2-3 months ago. You are in a very fortunate position coming into this year that you've got a team of horses, I think 6 or so qualified for Tokyo. Have you got an idea as to which horse that you would like to take, or which horse that would be mainly aimed at the games for next year? Will that change because we've got another 12 months?
Well, yeah, Will, I can probably tell you this now because the goalposts have moved a little bit and selection is going to be reviewed again. I've had 4 or 5 fantastic horses, and the team vets and even the sort of coaches were sort of putting pressure on me, saying, which one do you think should be a good horse for Tokyo? And what an extraordinary position I'm in, and I still can't believe my luck. But I honestly answered the same. I said, I cannot pick between them. They are extraordinary. I've got Quality Purdy as out performer. Polystar is the horse that I probably love more than any other horse I've ever had. He's just the most delightful thing to ride. And then I've got very good, exciting young horses like Clever Lewis and Chloe coming along. So, yeah, like you said, negatives and positives, it'll be a shame for some of them if they're not in this good of form come 2021. However, I realised the other night when I was laying in bed that I've got a very exciting horse in Jefferson who could in fact be qualified for Tokyo with another 12 months. So there's always silver linings, aren't there?
Okay, if I'm not going to say if it was this year. Let's put a name on it. There's obviously a really nice team of horses. Clever Louis actually is one that I was going to talk to you about because he was second at Buccalo last year, and he was the Blenheim 9-year-old winner. But he was a new ride for you at the end of the season, or middle of last season perhaps. But actually, within the space of 6 months, he went from not even being in your yard to actually being one of your top possibles for Tokyo.
Incredible, wasn't it? I still think that was an amazing run. Yeah, look, thank you to the owners of this property that we're living at and our fantastic sponsors, Kate and Jeffrey Guy. We were able to purchase Clever Louis. He was, a huge percentage thoroughbred that I always knew about him as a younger horse, and we always liked him. And I took him to the 8 and 9-year-olds as my first event, not even a BE one-day event. And he stormed around. I was fortunate enough to win it, but we were still getting to know each other. However, by the time we went to Buccalo, we were already married together. He and I really felt like we'd been together for years. And a huge thanks goes to Ben Loiver and Dirk Schrader for producing and preparing him for me.
What would have been the plan for him this spring? Obviously, things have changed, but was he going to do another long format?
No, we decided. Well, I don't want to give away all Team Australia's tactics, but the instructions were to get qualified early, so get qualified last year, and then be ready and do some short format eventing, ERM for example, and then go to Tokyo.
Okay, that's very fair. Okay, let's go to one of the questions that has come in. Helen Elizabeth says, what is the best advice you received as an up-and-coming rider when you were younger?
I think I've sort of already said this in this interview already, but it was exactly that. I realised early on, it was a senior rider said to me, the trick to the game is sticking with it. I heard a quote the other day that sort of sums up what I'm trying to say, which was the saddest part of life is people that don't realise how close they were to success when they gave up. So I think ultimately just be tenacious and stick to your guns and enjoy the ride.
Very good advice. I think you can apply that to daily life for a lot of people. So there you go. If you're watching, take that on board. Okay, next one. Let's talk about the speed, because Echo Ratings have long dubbed you one of the fastest man on earth, and cross country is certainly one of the real highlights. You're always an absolute pleasure to watch cross country. You never look like you're going fast, and yet you are. So I suppose that there's a few questions that have come in around that. Let's go with the first one, which is, how do you train for cross country? Is it something that you've worked at? Is it something that comes naturally to you?
So do you know, I'm actually getting clients. It seems to be everywhere I go these days. It's these questions. If I do a clinic, it's this same question. And
Oh,
how do I
okay.
do it? And of course, there's many things like the line you take, and you know, perhaps being clever to angle jumps and be fast away from fences, etc. But the single biggest thing is being able to see a distance from the gallop. So if you come to me for a lesson, I'll put two jumping poles on the ground in any arena, and I'll say, okay, counter and do 7, and then do 5, then do 4, and have a go at 3. It's ultimately the same skill. If you can put that pole in between the gallop stride, it's very, very hard to do. And that's what we have to do at these cross-country fences.
It's
Of
all
course,
about seeing the
I'm not
price.
saying to you to go out there and go and gallop over fixed obstacles, everybody. That's not a wise thing to do. Be careful, be sensible.
And actually, all you're doing is starting with a pole on the ground to be able to kind of get the basics in.
Exactly, because I can sort of point out to people, you know, particularly if I'm doing clinics, and I've gotten really sort of hard-nosed in my old age in my clinics, because I say, if you can't jump those two poles and get a distance to both of them, then you're not going any further on. Stick with the program until you know this. And this is one thing I'm very passionate about in my teaching, is that I always teach to go on as the sport is. You have to be able to see a distance to be able to do high-level jumping. If you can't, stay at the level that you should be at until you can get it, and that might mean doing poles.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a very good point. Is it something, obviously that's a big part of it. You mentioned the line and kind of, we've already touched upon the type of horse you like. Is fitness something in terms of your horses that actually plays a big part in that as well?
Yes, of course it is. And you know, I say this many times, but it's not all me. I'm fortunate to have an incredible team of horses, and I'm a sucker for a blood horse. I'm a sucker for a forward-thinking horse. So that they make my job really easy.
You make it sound so easy. We know it's harder than it looks, but we will. I think that's it. That's a good starting point. So if you're wanting to go quick across country and channel your inner Chris person, then put poles on the ground and get your eye on a stride. Okay, let's see what else we have had through. I mean, I'm not going to lie. We have had lots of questions about your hair and how it's going to cope in lockdown. I wasn't going to go there. You know what? We can't deny the questions coming in. Best hair in eventing.
Well, I'm actually, I was hoping my mate Tim Price was watching, because I'm an old man and it's starting to recede. And Tim, if you're listening, have you got any advice, mate? Is there any methods for coping with this?
I don't think he's going to give away any secrets to you, to be fair, just yet. Wear a cap. Okay, next one. Let's go to any tips for getting a lazier horse to enjoy their work?
That's a really good question. I think don't do the same thing every day. Certainly don't go in the dressage arena every day. Don't go in the school every day. Mix it up so that the horse can find it enjoyable. There might be a reason the horse is lazy, but I can tell you what we do. You know, if we have cold or lazy horses, that we hack them out a lot. We might gallop them once every fortnight or something like that, and try and spice them up and keep them happy. And if you do decide to go on to the dressage arena, to school dressage, then I do it sort of first in the morning when your mind's fresh, and you do it as the best job you possibly can.
Okay, that's a very good point. Any tips on making work in the school fun for them and sort of dressage? Is it short and sweet? Can you do pole work to kind of mix it up? Anything like that?
Yeah, well, I'm at the moment madly riding through the Tokyo test, which I'm finding very difficult, actually. The counter half pass change is a really difficult movement. So I find that sort of thing really challenging and therefore enjoyable. But maybe if you're at a lower level, maybe, you know, a lot of my jumping lessons start with two poles, like I said, and after the session, they say that felt more like a dressage lesson. I said, well, it is. You'll get a connection between you and your horse if you start adding strides and lengthening canter and taking strides out in between these two poles.
Okay, cool. Right, let's go to another question that came in, and if you want to send in any questions, now is the chance. Let's talk about ERM. So Ailish has actually asked, where would your dream ERM location be? If you could pick any event all over the world, where would you put one?
Well, the thing I love about ERM is the wonderful venues that we get to go to, you know, being able to go to some of the amazing shows abroad, the beautiful events at the stately homes in the UK. I guess I actually read this question earlier, so thank you for your question. I guess the thing I fantasize about for ERM, this is totally my projection, would be having it a little bit more like global or maybe a bit more like Aachen. So, for example, I love going to Bolesworth and doing the show jumping there, and I thought, wouldn't that be a fantastic place to have an ERM as an example? And that's one of the reasons I love Wiesbaden, because we could go and watch some dressage and some show jumping at the same time.
Yeah,
or maybe we could go to Miami Beach and have a cross country there, which is what we one day.
We could do that. We could make a cross country course somewhere along the beach. I'm sure it'd be fine. Let's talk about ERM for just a second, because obviously you are a double series champion. Your campaign last year was slightly different to the campaign the year before, in so much as last year it was very much consistency, and there were a couple of disappointments along the way, Jardy, when you weren't able to compete being one of them. But it's something that you've really targeted your string at, isn't it, over the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, the minute we heard about it, we're extremely excited. It was what we've always dreamed about in the sport, really. I don't want to be rude to some of the existing venues, because putting on events is very, very difficult and very costly, and committees put a lot of time and effort in. But I can think back to a time where some fellow Antipodeans and I were stood on a podium in the dark, first, second and third, not a spectator there to watch, and a appalling sort of prize money check that we're embarrassed to tell our owners about. And ERM came along and resolved all of those problems for us in the sport, and wonderful thing it was.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If we are getting back eventing this year, and Burley runs, do you have a plan to take any of your horses to a 5-star at the back end of 2020? Let's just hope that, you know, eventing comes back and we are up and running this year.
Well, that's what you've got to do, haven't you? That's what I've been doing. I've been sort of obviously moving the goalposts as we go, but absolutely, I hope to have a couple for Burley, maybe a couple for Poe, and that's all we can do at this stage.
That kind of relates to another question in from Claire. In a typical year, how many times a week or a month would you gallop a 5-star horse? So if you were getting a horse ready for Burley, for example, how soon would you have to start that sort of hardcore fitness work?
So the thing I've learned in my career, Claire, is that it's horse dependent. Those thoroughbreds that I spoke about, I swear I had a thoroughbred in Australia called Under Discussion, and you could have just tied him up to a gum tree for the whole year and then dragged him out and galloped around a 5-star. He was naturally fit. He was an extraordinary animal. So that's a tough question. And then be conscious of how you determine the word fit too. Fit also might mean sound and healthy and happy. So there's all of those things to think about. It's not a case of just writing down, this is how many times I intend to gallop and doing it. You've got to feel the horse.
And are you a fan of sort of traditional galloping? Do you do any work in sort of swimming or water treadmills?
Yeah, so obviously I would think, like many riders, that kind of thing changes a lot over your career. And we're always interested to talk to other people about how they gallop. You know, early in my career, and I did many long formats with roads and tracks and steeplechase. You know, we used to go a lot slower and do a lot more miles. And I believe since then we learned that was actually counterproductive to fitness, because you would just often creating injury and not actually making them fitter. And then I started doing a lot more sprint work, where it was a lot shorter, a lot more intensive work.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I have to admit that sunset behind you is now absolutely beautiful. It's making my project house look not quite as glamorous. Okay, let's go through a few of the questions that came in beforehand. Let's go for which horse would you consider started your eventing career?
Yeah, that is a good question. I had a little thoroughbred that Mum and Dad bought for me, that Mum found in the horse trading post or whatever it was. And it was a lot of money for us at the time. It was 5,000 Aussie dollars, but it seemed like a lovely little thoroughbred. And we got him on trial somehow.
Okay.
And we'd go and
like...
have lessons, you know, and we couldn't work out whether the instructors wanted to buy this bloody horse off us. So we bought him and kept him. And all through my career, people wanted to buy him. It was an extraordinary horse. And if you wanted to do a better dressage test, you just went and had a dressage lesson. If you wanted to go faster on the cross country, you just put the foot down and went faster. It was unbelievable. He always jumped clear. He jumped like a little warm blood jumping horse. And there is no doubt in my mind that Dio is the reason I'm here today.
Is he a horse that you actually wish you could have a second time round and ride him now, knowing what you know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I've had a few like that though, but I do wonder what he could have been like if I knew now what I knew. So
yeah.
On the other hand, maybe I wouldn't be here I definitely wouldn't be here without him, because those young rider horses tolerate so much, and that's still managed to take me to 4-star.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's pick a few more questions. What piece of tack could you not live without?
My casque riding helmet.
Very good answer. Like that one a lot. Okay, next one. What's your most embarrassing moment? Now we're going to make this eventing related, unless it's when Tim Price beat you at golf or something, in which case that's fine too.
That would be embarrassing.
So yes, anything eventing related that you look back and you go, did you go
yeah,
wrong
so it's okay because I've told this story a few times, but in Adelaide 3-day event, I was riding a very nice horse from actually Alex Townsend, who's the daughter of Carolyn and Tony Townsend, who are my best owners. And there was a warm-up arena beside the main arena, but there were 2 arenas going in the 2-star class. And I sort of trotted around what I thought was the warm-up arena. I thought, why are there judges sitting there? And Prue Barrett was there and said, Berto, you've got to drop your whip. You can get eliminated for that these days, or the rule at the time was. And then the bell rang, and I thought I was being called over to go into this warm-up arena, but it's the main arena. And then I sort of had to go in, and it was, to this day, it really haunts me, and has made sure that I've never been late or never been unprepared for a dressage warm-up ever again.
That's like one of those bad dreams that you would have waking up.
It was like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you manage it? Did you pull it off? Did you go do your test? No mistakes or no errors, of course.
Yeah, I got through the test, but he was a particularly good dressage horse, and so I think there's a lot of pressure on to do a very good score, and I didn't. So I had to explain that to poor Alex afterwards. There's the truth behind that story.
At least you didn't go in carrying your whip and get eliminated.
Yeah.
Because that would have been worse. Okay, let's if you've got any more questions, send them in now. This is the chance. I'm gonna just take a couple more from our question list, and then we'll answer anybody on the screen, and then that will be it. First of all, what would be, if you've got one thing to achieve in your career left to be, what would you really like to tick off? World number 1, Olympic medal, Olympic gold medal, anything, world medals, anything.
Yeah, so I've learned not to get too fixated on any one thing. I'd like all of those, actually. That'd be really nice. But but the truth is,
you could tick all the boxes. It's fine.
Yeah, well, no, the truth is, it's a tough industry, and it's tough at the top, and you have to just keep a focus on it and just try and be riding your best.
Would world number 1 be something that you would perhaps aim for? You've certainly got strength and depth in your string at the moment to kind of think, actually, I'd quite like to chase that world number 1 spot.
Yeah, I watched an interview with Pippa Funnell, I forget when it was, and it was about when she won the Grand Slam, and it sort of picked, the press trying to get an answer as to how it happened, and her answer was very generic. It doesn't work like that. It just happens. And the same with the incredible team of horses we've got at the moment. It wasn't planned. We were just focused on our job, focusing on the Olympics and getting horses and owners together. And at the moment, I'm enjoying that. I have nice horses, but nowhere to take them.
No, I know, that's the thing, isn't it? Neve O'Brien says rider fitness. Now, I've seen a few Team Burton Pilates pictures on Instagram. I think it's something you take fairly seriously?
Yeah, we do. I'm just getting old, really. So without my Pilates, I'd be falling apart, or the aches and pains from riding my years would be taking its toll. But I find all the core strength and the work we do, and I'm very lucky to have Georgia, our wonderful physio, who helps me with that.
Do you do any other work, or is it mostly Pilates, and obviously the riding is a big part of it as well?
Yeah, sometimes after I get back from Australia, when I'm put on too much weight because I've been enjoying, barbecues and drinking too much over the off season, I would do a bit of running. But generally in the season, I just try to avoid burnout and work on my core strength and sit on the couch.
That's fair. And run around after two small toddlers. Okay, here's one in now from Dr. Scott. He says, if you could choose one horse in the current day or in the past, which would you choose other than your own? So this is no consequences. I mean, we had a question come in as well that you can steal any horse. I'm not recommending you go and steal anything, but if you could have your pick, is there one that you think I'd really like to go on that?
These questions are just so dangerous. Yeah, I think anyone would be happy to steal Wesco off Timmy, wouldn't they? Just to have him in your stable and look at him and pat him.
So just a pet dash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A tough one. There's so many good horses. I'm thinking about who could take their horse just so we could nobble them for the Olympics, so they're a horse down. But that's what makes it a fun competition.
Take a German horse. Don't take a British horse. Take a German horse.
Well, if you took a British horse, you'd have to take 24 of them. They're so strong at the moment.
We're all right. Okay, let's go for one more question. If you could tell yourself something when you were, say, 15 years ago, what piece of advice would you go back and tell your younger self?
I would just go back and say, enjoy it, mate. It's a hell of a ride.
Very good point. Chris, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on the Q&A. And then I've enjoyed the sunset as much as anything else. It's been brilliant. We've loved hearing more about it. We're going to be looking out to see if you find any new horses in your stable next year that you might have stolen. Tim Price, watch your back. Stay safe, look after yourselves, send the best to the entire Burton family, and we will do another one of these Q&A sessions very soon, I'm sure. So if you've got any requests, send them in. We would love to hear from you. But Chris, thank you. Take care, stay safe, and we'll be back very soon.
Pleasure. See you later, Nicole.